What's good, fam? How's it going? Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, please do subscribe down below, smash the like button, hit the bell. Those things help out a lot. YouTube never notifies people when we upload our videos, so make sure you hit the bell so that you get notified. Don't want to miss out. Anyway guys, today's got a dope episode for you as always. It's all about Hermes, pollen sacs, nanners, balls, whatever you want to call it. Those things that you don't want. Definitely don't want that. A lot of people end up with some fair nanners or some pollen sacs or some Hermes or some balls and all those stuff, and those stuff are never fun. So we're going to break down what you should look for, what sometimes causes it, how you can avoid it. Before we get into that guys, Seed Club membership is about to close, so make sure that you snag a spot before it fully closes. And if you want to support the channel and cop some merch from our website, we're giving away free testers to everyone that supports us and cops some merch on the website, so definitely give it a look. But without further ado guys, let's get into today's episode. Yes guys, so today we're talking Hermes, pollen sacs, nanners, balls, all that good stuff. Or is it really good stuff? I'm not too sure. Now it's important to note, certain plants will herm even if healthy and unstressed. This is a genetic trait that's carried by some strains and particular plants. Part of why it's important to get your beans from a trustworthy breeder. Because I won't name and shame, but I copped some beans already and they just hermed everywhere, dude. Like, I don't know. Balls everywhere. And I took clone and grew it in 3 different setups under different lights and different environments, no stress, and balls everywhere. And there were a bunch of nanners too. Now nanners aren't triggered by stress. Herming was simply a part of the plant's genetics. But before we get into all that, we need to break down what is a herm. What is a hermie? What is this? Did you actually know that there are male and female plants? Well, of course you did, because you're on our channel. But our favorite plant is dioecious, which means that each plant shows a particular sex, just like humans and many animals. There will occasionally be plants that show mixed sex, and these plants are often referred to as hermaphrodites or Hermes. Now the sex of a particular plant matters quite a bit to growers. Only female plants produce buds. Male plants produce pollen. So that must have you thinking, I only want the buds. But you gotta understand, it's difficult to look at young plants and know its sex. So the first part of your plant's life, it'll be in the stage of growth known as the veg stage. This stage, your plant will only grow leaves and stems, no buds or flowers. Think of this at the time when your plant is gaining size to prepare for the second stage of life. A young vegetative plant is unlikely to reveal its sex until at least 3 or 6 weeks old, sometimes even later than that. Unfortunately, it's difficult to determine the sex of a plant when it's a young seedling. Although there is genetic testing that can be used on plants as young as 1 week old, most growers aren't going to go that route. At a certain point, most strains will reveal their sex via pre-flowers. These pre-flowers usually show at the joints of the plants. This is normal and it's just a sign that your plant is fully mature and ready to start flowering. Another great option though is to use clones. Cuttings or clones taken from a female plant will always turn out to be female. And a lot of growers know that when you breed 2 female plants together, you end up with feminized or all female beans. So unless you start with a known female clone or feminized seeds, there's no way to know what sex your plant will turn out until it actually starts showing pre-flowering signs. So now that you know plants are either male or female, it actually doesn't stop there. Sometimes you may run into plants that show both male and female characteristics, and those plants can accidentally self-pollinate or pollinate your other female plants. Bad news. A plant that shows both male and female parts is often referred to by growers as a hermie or a hermaphrodite. These can pollinate your plants and cause seedy buds. There are a few different types of mixed-sex plants. It's not usually advisable to breed mixed-sex plants to create seeds because their offspring are more likely to display Hermie characteristics. Now, although growers refer to all mixed-sex plants as Hermes, there are technically 2 different kinds: hermaphrodite plants and mixed-sex buds, like buds with nanners. The only reason I bothered to differentiate between the 2 is that a true hermaphrodite plants are more predictable. I went through this before on our channel and that video has helped tons of growers out, so check that out. Pictures and videos on there. With the true hermaphrodite plant, the male and female parts will grow on different parts of the plant. They won't grow together in the same spot, such as when nanners appear in the middle of buds. Now what causes it? Stress can trigger this type of hermaphrodism, but unlike nanners, this particular type of mixed-sex plant seems to be a little more stable based on the plant's genetics. It usually doesn't take stress to cause these to appear. They're more like a natural trait in the strain. A clone of a true hermaphrodite plant will also often turn into a hermaphrodite, and offspring also show the same traits even under perfect environmental conditions. It's recommended to never breed a plant that shows hermaphrodite traits, since this is a highly inheritable genetic trait. A good breeding stock mother will not show signs of hermaphrodism even when subjected to stress. So as a grower, what should you do? Well, it's recommended that you remove the hermaphrodite plant out of your grow room or your grow area as soon as possible to prevent accidental pollination of the buds. Pollen can travel super far, man, and super easy. Pollen from a pollen sac is allowed to make contact with your buds. Those buds will stop focusing on making more more buds and turn all their effort into making seeds. No one wants super seedy buds with reduced yields. Do you? Do you? Nope, I don't. Sorry. Unlike nanners, hermaphrodite plants tend to be more predictable. Though it's not advisable, a grower who watches very closely can carefully pick off pollen sacs before they burst. However, this should only be done if it's the only plant you have. Don't do this if there are other female plants that can be pollinated. It's just not worth it. And remember, while these pollen sacs can start appearing early, they may continue to appear throughout the flowering stage. So stay vigilant. You gotta be doing this all the time. Now let's jump on to the nanners. Common type of mixed sex bud is the type that produces nanners or bananas, sometimes called nanners, which grow from the middle of the female buds. Now bananas are not often round and they don't look like a normal pollen sac. Instead, they're often elongated and yellow, which is where they got the nickname banana or nana, and they may grow together in bunches that can look like a bunch of bananas. Occasionally they appear more lime green than yellow, and these can be a lot more difficult to control than actual pollen sacs, since they may start pollinating everything in the area as soon as they appear. They don't wait. A few nanners won't do too much damage, but if you have a big banana problem, it may be best to harvest the plants immediately and cut your losses. Seeds take some time to develop, so if a plant starts herming right around harvest time, it's less likely that you'll end up with seeds. But just like real bananas, they appear in bunches. So what are they? Bananas are actually exposed male parts of a pollen sac called the stamen, which would usually be surrounded by a sac to hold in all the pollen until it bursts open. If you actually open up a fully formed pollen sac, you'll see what looks like bananas or stamens inside. But when the bananas appear in your plants, they don't need to burst in order to spread pollen. They immediately start making pollen and will often seed the buds that they are close by, even if the bananas are removed right away. And sometimes the pollen can drift to other plants and pollinate them as well too. Sometimes it may be the case that the pollen is sterile and won't pollinate the bud successfully, but don't rely on that happening. Like I said, those yellow branches in the bud, the nanners, those nanners will try to pollinate everything they can, and they don't wait for the pollen sac to burst. They just get at it. Now, if a female plant is allowed to go too long without being harvested or pollinated, allowed to go past the point of optimal harvest, then she will sometimes produce a bunch of nanners in her bud as a last-ditch attempt to pollinate herself and create seeds. This is sometimes known as rotalization. This is not as destructive as other types of hermes since it only happens after plants have already passed the point of optimal harvest. So what causes it all? While genetics are the ultimate cause of whether a plant is capable of producing bananas or mixed sex buds, environmental stress is often a big component to causing bananas to form. Luckily, if you stick with high quality genetics, you're less likely to run into bananas even if you do accidentally stress your plants. Not all bananas are fertile, and you may see them without ever getting seeds. But there are different types of stresses that can cause nanners to form on buds. Inconsistent light schedules and light leaks. When plants don't get light at the same time each day, or if they're exposed to light during their dark period, which is also called light leak. For photoperiod plants, this may be the largest contributor to hermes. Also, temperature. When temps get too high, hermes and nanners often appear. Cold night temps or just large temperature swings in general are known to trigger nanners for some strains. Too bright of a light, like too much heat or too much light that's too bright, can stress your plants and trigger hermes. This is often caused by growers keeping their lights too close to their plants. You can light burn your plants and even cause them to herm, even when the temperature is under control. Major plant problems like nutrient deficiencies, root rot, pH problems, light burn, nutrient burn, all these can trigger hermes and cause them to start growing. Genetics. While stress plays a big role in the formation of nanners, the tendency to form them is genetic. Tendency is very common in the seeds of a plant that hermes. Feminized seeds, while always female, are much more likely to show the same herming traits as its parent. Growings that were produced this way may cause you to grow more nanners, so only get feminized beans from a trusted breeder. Like I said, if you're in this situation, what you should do is remove those plants showing any nanners or pollen sacs from your grow area immediately. You want to avoid accidental pollination of buds. If the pollen being formed is allowed to make contact with your buds, those buds will stop focusing on making more buds and will turn all of their effort into making seeds. If the plant self-pollinates, you'll end up with a bunch of subpar seeds that are likely to have the same problem. So just get rid of it. Like, trying to salvage a plant that has started producing tons of nanners is not recommended because it's hard to get rid of them all, and eventually you end up with those subpar seeds. Even worse, once a plant gets started, nanners can appear in huge bunches overnight, especially when the plant is stressed. Harvest the plant as soon as you can before seeds get a chance to forming. Now, have you ever had any issues with nanners, hermes, pollen sacs, balls, males, any of these things? If you have, drop a comment down below. Let me know how it turned out for you, what your experience was, and how you dealt with it. Did you just like pluck it out and throw him away? Did you keep him for some breeding? Like, what did you do with him? Sometimes you can actually soak the plants in water and that'll stop pollen spreading. But just let me know what you did in those situations, man. I'm really eager to find out what you guys gotta say. Don't forget to smash the like button, hit the bell, share the video, and before you you leave, check out this video right here and this one right here. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace, fam.